Arkansas is an interesting team to me. Coming off of a 5-7 year last year, I believe it was 5-7. Um, they didn't make a bowl game. Arkansas has lost a lot of their identity. I feel like from last year. Rocket Sanders is gone. KJ Jefferson gone. Both of them transfer out. Uh, Rocket Sanders going to be playing within the conference over in South Carolina. KJ Jefferson headed over to UCF. Best of luck to those guys over there. Now you've got Jacoby Criswell at quarterback left over from last year, and then you bring in a guy named Taylon Green over from Boise State. It looks to me, from everything I can read, which Arkansas just started spring practice. Some of these teams are already getting going on spring practice, which is just crazy. Arkansas is doing that early spring practice this year. They said they're going to try that out and see how it goes. It seems to me like Taylon Green is the favorite to get the QB1 reps in the spring, but this quarterback job is anywhere uh, but doled out. It's going to be a competition, and so we'll have to kind of see how things go throughout the spring and fall. But I think the biggest news of this offense is the hire and kind of handing the reins over of this offense to Bobby Petrino. It seems like just yesterday he rode off into the sunset on his motorcycle in a neck brace, right? And here we are, and I feel like from everything I can gather, it feels like the Arkansas fans and talking heads are pretty happy about Bobby Petrino coming in and taking over the reins on offense. And I say taking the reins because last year at Texas A&M, you saw Bobby Petrino come in and he wasn't able to fully install his offense. Jimbo Fisher required him to use different terminology, got to do it this way to fit my system, blah, blah, blah. That's not happening in Arkansas. If you go back and you watch Sam Pittman's press conference from yesterday, I believe it was yesterday, either that or the day before, they asked him, is Bobby Petrino going to be able to run this offense? And he said, I have handed the reins over completely. Bobby asked me if I wanted him to change anything. I told him, don't change a thing. So you're going to see Bobby come in here and do his thing. And, by the way, this offensive wide receiver room, they're returning every single player from last year. So the wide receivers, from what Sam Pittman is saying, are fired up. They're ready to go play some football. Really excited about what this new system is going to bring to that wide receiver room, the energy that it's going to bring. If we can get Taylon Green out there slinging the rock around, I think this can be a somewhat decent offense. Obviously, you're going to have to replace one of the best players, in my opinion, one of the best running backs in college football, in Rocket Sanders, and that's going to be a task. But this team has 39 new players on it, okay? This team had tons of turnover from last year. The defensive line and secondary looked to be pretty decent. If you look back at yards per game given up through the air last year, would you believe that Arkansas was ranked in the top 5 as far as giving up passing yards per game last year, and yards per game in general? This Arkansas defense did pretty well for the most part. Their problem was the offense could never get anything going. The other teams, the opponents' best offense was best defense was their offense last year. And the fact that other teams' offenses got to run a ton of plays. And so it skewed a lot of the run game stats and things. This defense was better than it appeared on paper last year. And it returns a lot of those guys. Linebacker is where there is a massive question mark for this Arkansas Razorback team. And that's why you see a guy like Xavier Sorey, who was a high 4-star that was at the University of Georgia, 5 stars, I think, in some, even in some recruiting
There
rankings.
you go.
He comes over from Georgia, somebody who was kind of buried on the depth chart over there. They need Xavier Sorey to soar beyond all expectations this season if Arkansas wants to get back to a bowl game. The over-under set at 5.5. I think you can put that either if they get to 6 wins, it'll be because that linebacker core stepped up and some guys that you've never heard of stepped up for that team. So That's a big question mark for me. Quarterback and linebacker. Where are we at there? Excuse me. I trust Sam Pittman to have a good offensive line. This guy's an offensive line coach from way back, so I certainly expect the offensive line to be able to do their thing. Feel good, like I said, about the DL and the secondary. Just need those linebackers, excuse me, to step up. You want to take us through this schedule and maybe give us some thought, what your thoughts are on the Arkansas Razorbacks?
Yeah, so if I'm not mistaken, that first game is against
Pine Bluff,
like oh, okay. I was going
Arkansas
somewhere
Pine
else.
Bluff.
Okay, it
Yep,
is an Arkansas school. I was going to say like Northeast Arkansas State Tech University, so, it's a team like that, but I do like that logo. That's pretty
pretty
nice.
neat.
It looks like my hair whenever it flows.
It looks
Um,
like a tattoo that you get when you're 21 and then you turn like
yeah.
51 and you're like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah, and it looks like just a splotch of mustard on your deltoid. um, so they should win that game. And but the most interesting game here is the non-conference game in week 2 against Oklahoma State in September. I think that's a really good matchup. I think that's going to be a pretty competitive matchup. In other words, not necessarily good for Arkansas. I'm not going to say that they're a shoe in to win that game necessarily, but that's going to be a very fun one to watch as a fan. Um, if they win that game, I think that they get a little bit of momentum, beat UAB, and then you got Auburn. That's going to be probably a toss up game. I would say that's a 50-50 game. Both of these teams to me right now are winning in the offseason and they're trending up. So that's a really interesting game to watch to see kind of who is going to take over in that old SEC West and who are the real playmakers or the players, I should say, in the SEC as we know it starting next season. Texas A&M game, a team that we just covered. That's a game that I think is going to be really tough for Arkansas. But if Bobby Petrino comes in and makes the difference that we assume he's going to make, and if the defense, like you mentioned, plays as good as they did last year, that's a winnable game, right, for Arkansas. I don't, I wouldn't. I'm not just going to say I have a lot of hope in Texas A&M, but I'm not just going to say that they're going to beat Arkansas without
That's
seeing them play
always
on field.
that's always a great game. And that's
Yeah,
that's played at Jerry World every year too.
yeah, and I think that that's going to be just as fun of a game. I think Texas A&M should probably be favored just given the guys that they have, but that hasn't amounted to much in the past. Then you got Tennessee. It's going to be a really tough matchup. October 5th, they get a bye for the October 12th and then October 19th, LSU. Those are going to be two really tough matchups back to back. And then they got another back to back with Ole Miss and Texas, again separated by a bye week. So can you get two of those four right?
Yeah.
It's going to be really tough. I think if you're an Arkansas fan, you say, "Hey, can we get one of those four?" Like if you win any of those four, you feel pretty good about the mid to later part of that season. Obviously, you hope that you're going to be able to bully Mississippi State around. You beat La Tech, and then Missouri. This has become a bit of a rivalry of sorts, and I'm excited to see kind of what this game looks like because I don't know that Missouri is going to hang around until the end of the year and be competitive. I don't know if we're headed towards another 10-win season for Missouri. So by the end of the year, maybe Arkansas is figuring some things out. Maybe you catch Missouri sleeping, and maybe that's one you can play upset and end the year on a high note. With an over under at 5.5, and without going through the roster, which we'll do, I believe we'll probably hit Arkansas later on in the offseason. But without all that, I mean, at 5.5, I would venture. I'm pretty optimistic. I think that they can win 6. And win, half of these toss up games. I think that 6 is doable. What do you think about that over under, Mark?
I think it's spot on, Mason. I think
Yeah,
that they've got that half number right where it needs to be. look, you have to win all the games that you're supposed to win. First of all, that's the biggest thing for Arkansas. Um, Arkansas, Pine Bluff, UAB, Louisiana Tech. You got to win those ball games.
Mississippi State.
And then Mississippi State, you're going to play on the road. It's still a have to win game.
Yep.
You've got to win that football game if you're going to get anywhere close to this 5.5. So there's 4 wins, and I suspect they can win those 4 games.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like the Auburn game. Auburn is going to be fired up. It's on the road. That stadium's going to be raucous. I actually think Auburn's kind of trending in the right direction right now. So I don't love that situation. It seems like Missouri beats the stew out of Arkansas every year. I don't know what the deal is with that. I know this is a rivalry game. It doesn't seem like Arkansas can ever figure out a way to beat those guys. Texas, obviously, I think is going to be a loss. Ole Miss, I think, is probably going to be a loss. LSU, we'll see what that defense looks like. That's going to go a long way in deciding. So, yeah, I think it's an uphill battle getting to that 6th win. I think if you're really going to point at a game on the schedule that you've got to win to get to that 6th win for a couple of different reasons is the Oklahoma State game. You're going to Oklahoma State, which is not too far away there. I think there's going to be some Arkansas fans in the house. I think if you want to get to that 6 wins, I think that Oklahoma State game is super pivotal because not only would you have that win under your belt, but that's early in the season. That's grabbing momentum early in the season, which is going to be a big deal before you get into that SEC slate. So maybe if you can win that Oklahoma State game and win that Texas A&M neutral site game, I think you got a pretty good shot of hitting that 6, honestly. So I think those are 2 games that are super important for the Arkansas Razorbacks this year.